I have more freedom to say what I want than lawyers, who practice here all the time.
George Clooney's wife, Amal, has finally decided it's time to lift the veil and spill the secrets we've all been itching to know.
Sometimes you are able to apply pressure through the judiciary, and sometimes you have to sort of work with diplomats.
This power couple has kept their lives so private that even Hollywood insiders are left in the dark. But why now? Why, after all these years, is Amal ready to talk? The untold love story of George Clooney and Amal. George Clooney's love life has been like a Hollywood thriller in itself. Glamorous, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating. Known for that trademark heart-stopping smile and a career that kept the world captivated, he seemed to have it all. Except, as he'd joke, any real interest in marriage. From early on, Clooney was clear. Marriage and family just weren't in the cards. After a short-lived first marriage, he declared himself done with the whole idea, convinced he'd never walk down the aisle again. For George, the bachelor lifestyle fit like a custom-made suit. For years, he lived it up, constantly being in the spotlight, gracing red carpets, starring in blockbuster films, and charming one beautiful woman after another. His romantic adventures became tabloid gold, painting him as the ultimate bachelor who loved his freedom too much to ever say "I do." And you know what? He embraced the role, laughing off any talk of marriage with a casual grin, claiming he wasn't really cut out for it. Fans loved his honesty and they cheered him on. Why settle down when life is one big dazzling party? It looked like Clooney had the bachelor life all figured out, until life threw him a twist he never saw coming.
And you said it would never ever happen, and
Yes.
You know what? God bless you.
Well, it's happened.
Yes!
I can't take it back now.
Just when he thought he had dodged that chapter forever, fate was quietly waiting in the wings, ready to introduce him to a love story that would change everything. But before we dive into that unexpected twist, let's rewind and take a closer look at how George Clooney rose to become the Hollywood legend he is today. It's a story that reveals the man behind the stardom and sets the stage for a chapter in his life no one, least of all Clooney himself, could have predicted. In fact, the very George Clooney who once swore off marriage now proudly declares, "I'm just glad to be your husband." Yes, the man once celebrated as Hollywood's ultimate bachelor has been swept into a love story worthy of its own blockbuster. Surprising? You're not alone in thinking that. He may have found love in the spotlight, but the road to stardom was anything but glamorous. A humble beginning far from Hollywood. His story began far from the Hollywood glamour, in small-town Kentucky on May 6, 1961. Growing up, George had a unique vantage point on show business thanks to his father, Nick Clooney, a well-known television host. Yet despite this early exposure, George's own rise to fame was anything but instant. For years, he wandered on the edges of Hollywood, taking on small, forgettable roles, always waiting for his big break. That moment finally arrived in 1990 when he landed the role of Dr. Doug Ross on ER. With his irresistible charm and rebel attitude, Clooney's portrayal of the dashing doctor turned him into an overnight sensation. Suddenly, everyone knew his name, and his career was launched into high gear. But fame was just the beginning. Clooney's transition from TV star to silver screen icon came with a mix of hits and bold risks. He graced blockbuster films like Ocean's 11, Gravity, and Syriana, the last of which even bagged him an Academy Award. But Clooney wasn't content just playing the heartthrob, he wanted to shape the stories he told. Stepping behind the camera, he emerged as a director, producer, and writer known for films tackling serious social and political themes. Clooney's work revealed a depth and commitment to meaningful storytelling, proving he was more than just a pretty face. And then there's Clooney, the humanitarian. He's used his fame to spotlight pressing global issues, from shining a light on the Darfur crisis to delivering aid to war-torn regions. With a passion for justice and change, Clooney has transformed from a Hollywood icon into a respected advocate, earning admiration far beyond the film industry. You see, George Clooney's journey is one of reinvention, resilience, and yes, a shocking twist of love that surprised even him. His life is a story of a man who, despite all the fame and fortune, never lost sight of what truly matters. But for all the fame, fortune, and charm, George Clooney's journey in love hasn't always been a fairy tale. In fact, it's been a roller coaster full of unexpected twists, tough lessons, and plenty of heartbreak, especially when it came to his first marriage. You might wonder, how does a man with so much going for him find himself struggling in love? Let's rewind. Clooney himself has laughed, somewhat incredulously, about the idea of a second marriage, admitting he never thought it would happen again. His first marriage didn't survive, and that chapter has always been a topic of curiosity. What went wrong? It was the late 80s, and George was far from the Hollywood superstar he would eventually become. He was still grinding away in Hollywood, taking small roles, looking for his big break. During this time, he crossed paths with actress Talia Balsam, a woman whose beauty and talent left an undeniable impression. There was an unexpected spark, and in 1989, they took the plunge and tied the knot. For George, marriage seemed like the natural next step, the right path to follow in love. But real life had other plans. Very quickly, George and Talia discovered that love alone wasn't enough to keep a marriage strong. George was young and ambitious, and his career was just starting to gain momentum. As his work demands intensified, the relationship began to take a back seat. Later, in candid interviews, George would admit he simply wasn't prepared for the commitment marriage demanded. He cared for Talia, no doubt, but his focus was firmly on his career, and the relationship didn't get the attention it needed. In 1993, the marriage ended. The experience left George feeling like he had failed, not just as a husband, but as someone who could truly understand what marriage required. It was a loss that haunted him, shaping how he viewed love and relationships for years to come. From that moment on, he convinced himself that he wasn't marriage material, that he wasn't the kind of guy who could make a relationship last. This chapter marked a turning point in George's personal life, a tough lesson that shaped his approach to love, making him even more cautious, even more convinced that a lifelong partnership just wasn't in the cards for him. Or so he thought. Looking back now, George Clooney often reflects on the hard-earned wisdom from his first marriage. He admits that he had to take a good long look at himself, at his ambitions and priorities, to see how they impacted his relationship. His career had always been his number one focus, and by his own admission, he hadn't made enough room for his marriage. He was consumed with chasing his Hollywood dreams, leaving his relationship trailing far behind. As his career blossomed, George realized there was a lot he still didn't understand about love, commitment, and the delicate art of balancing personal ambition with a partner's needs. That first marriage may have been painful, but it became a vital lesson, shaping his perspective on relationships for years to come. For decades after, George remained single, entering a self-declared bachelor phase, where he met plenty of remarkable women but stayed far from the idea of settling down. Every time the media poked at the marriage question, George would shrug it off with a smirk, joking that he'd tried marriage once and it hadn't exactly gone to plan. With his trademark humor, he'd insist that he wasn't cut out to be a husband, and people believed him. On the outside, he looked every bit the content bachelor, like he'd happily closed the door on marriage for good. But beneath the laughter and charm, the truth was that his first marriage had left a deep scar. It wasn't just a simple heartbreak. That failed relationship stirred up doubts in George, making him question if he was really built for a lasting partnership. Always the self-reliant type, George felt the weight of his marriage's failure gnawing at his confidence. Over time, he started to believe that maybe marriage simply wasn't for him, that he was better off flying solo than risking the pain of another failed relationship. The sting of George Clooney's first marriage lingered for years, leaving a wound he wasn't ready to risk reopening. With a thriving career, loyal friends, and absolute freedom, he had all he needed, right? Why take a gamble on love? Meanwhile, his ex-wife Talia Balsam had moved on, marrying fellow actor John Slattery. George, too, was moving forward at full throttle, becoming an even bigger Hollywood sensation. To anyone looking in from the outside, it seemed like both were thriving, each living their own version of happily ever after. But for George, those emotional walls stayed firmly in place, influencing every move he made when it came to love and relationships. But then came 2013, a year that changed everything. That was when he met Amal, a powerhouse human rights lawyer from Lebanon, introduced by a mutual friend at his Lake Como retreat in Italy. At first, George didn't think much of it. He'd met plenty of fascinating people over the years, and relationships were simply not his focus. But when Amal walked into the room, something shifted. Yes, she was stunning, but it was her fierce intellect and amazing dedication to justice that captured his attention. Here was a woman leagues away from Hollywood glitz, someone committed to fighting real-world battles. Slowly but surely, George felt the walls he had so carefully built begin to crumble. Perhaps the path to happiness wasn't as narrow as George once believed. So who is this remarkable woman who captured the heart of Hollywood's most confirmed bachelor? Let's dive into the extraordinary life of Amal Clooney, a woman whose accomplishments stand in a league of their own, far beyond just being George Clooney's wife. The making of a legal warrior. Amal Clooney is a powerhouse, one of the most formidable and brilliant human rights attorneys of our time. Her career has been nothing short of groundbreaking. She's fought for freedom of speech, defended political prisoners, and boldly challenged dictators and terrorists alike. Respected across international organizations, she's built a reputation for fearlessness and integrity. To understand what shaped Amal's journey and the path that led her to this point, we need to step back. Who is Amal Clooney really, and what led her into the challenging world of law? Amal Ramzi Alamuddin was born on February 3, 1978, in Lebanon amidst a time of immense conflict. Her father, a university professor and business executive, and her mother, a journalist, made the difficult choice to leave Lebanon when Amal was just 2 years old, escaping the violence of the Lebanese Civil War. The family relocated to London in 1980, where Amal's academic brilliance quickly became apparent. By 1996, Amal was studying at Oxford University, where her passion for justice took shape. Her path didn't end there. She went on to pursue further studies at NYU School of Law, where she had the opportunity to work with notable figures in the field of human rights. Her early life was defined by resilience, intellect, and a profound commitment to justice, a foundation that would drive her to fight tirelessly for human rights across the globe. From there, Amal's career blossomed, each case leaving an indelible mark on the world stage. Her victories in high-stakes legal battles have cemented her reputation as a legal giant. And now, as she steps forward with news that could reshape her career and personal life, the world watches closely, wondering just how this next chapter will unfold for Amal Clooney. After Amal completed her studies and passed the New York State Bar, her career in justice took off like a rocket. Her journey was only beginning, and it was clear that Amal Clooney was a woman with a vision far beyond ordinary goals. She joined the prestigious law firm Sullivan & Cromwell in New York City, where she quickly made her mark, working with the defense team on high-profile cases for clients like Enron and Arthur Andersen. Tackling cases involving complex corporate crime tested her legal skills early on, but Amal had even bigger ambitions. In 2005, Amal shifted her focus to international law, joining a United Nations tribunal that investigated the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. This move not only broadened her career but deepened her commitment to global justice. She took on some of the world's most intense and high-stakes cases, representing figures such as former Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, defending Libyan intelligence chief Abdullah al-Senussi, and advocating for WikiLeaks' Julian Assange. She even went out of her way to fight for an Azerbaijani journalist who was wrongfully detained for unveiling corruption.
So I'm doing another case at the moment representing an Azerbaijani journalist who's in prison in Baku, basically because she was the best investigative reporter in the country and uncovered evidence of corruption against the president, implicating the president, and so she's been locked up. There I can actually go to a court because Azerbaijan is a member of the Council of Europe, so I've taken her case to the European Court of Human Rights.
Each case reinforced her reputation as a legal powerhouse, one who could navigate even the most intricate webs of international law with unshakable precision. Amal Clooney was unstoppable, and her influence only grew. She chaired commissions with major global figures, collaborating with Kofi Annan on a United Nations panel for Syria and leading a 2013 inquiry on the use of drones in anti-terrorism efforts. She also championed causes around sexual violence in conflict zones, fighting for the protection of women's rights in war-torn areas. In 2015, she added another major victory to her record, representing Armenia in a case before the European Court of Human Rights. On top of her high-profile cases, Amal has shared her expertise at world-renowned institutions like the University of London, the Hague Academy of International Law, and as a visiting professor at Columbia Law School. Amal Clooney is not just impacting the world of law, she's actively reshaping the future of international justice, all while handling the spotlight of her personal life with grace. Still, amidst her career triumphs, destiny had another plan, a connection that would unite purpose with passion, a bond rooted in purpose.
I met him and I thought, I'm so glad that there's someone like him in the world. I didn't necessarily imagine that I would get to spend my life with him or that we would have this incredible family.
Yeah.
Reflecting on their first encounter, Amal opened up to Vogue in 2018 about the moment she met George. "I always hoped there could be love that was overwhelming and didn't require any weighing or decision-making," she shared. "It's the thing you have the least control over. Are you going to meet this person? I was 35 when I met him." For Amal, who had built a life of purpose and independence, love had always felt like a distant, almost elusive dream. She wasn't in a hurry to marry or start a family, unless it felt undeniably right. Amal was in Italy when a mutual friend decided to play matchmaker, introducing her to George during a visit to his stunning Lake Como villa. George recounted the surreal moment, saying, "It's the wildest thing. A mutual friend of ours asked, 'I'm stopping by, can I bring a friend along?' And I thought, of course it's," but before Amal even set foot in his home, George's agent had already sensed something in the air.
Great story, actually. I was in Lake Como, single, and a friend of mine said, "Is it okay if I bring my friend over? I'm on my way to the Cannes Film Festival. Can I bring my friend over?" And my mom and dad were staying with me in Como at the time, and a couple of other friends. And I was like, "Sure, bring her over."
My agent called me up and said, "I met this woman who's coming to your house and you're going to marry her."
Thing is, Brian Lord, my agent,
I know
called
Brian
me,
forever.
and he had just met Amal and some other thing, and she said, "Yeah, I'm going to go to Como with a friend of mine." And he said, and he called me up and he said, "There's a girl coming to your house that you're going to marry." And I was like, "You're an idiot."
George recalled with a laugh. And as if fate had its hand firmly in the mix, George's parents happened to be visiting that same evening. With Amal there, they spent the entire night in conversation, diving deep into stories, ideas, and dreams. For George, what started as a casual introduction became an unforgettable night, one where sparks quietly turned into something much more. Their connection was instant. Right from the start, George and Amal felt like a team. "We were just happy, and we have been happy ever since," George shared with The Hollywood Reporter, reflecting on the early days of their relationship. Their first official date was nothing short of memorable, unfolding against the iconic backdrop of London. Amal was living in London, and George was there to score a movie. Determined to make a lasting impression, he invited her to join him at Abbey Road Studios. He called her up and asked, "Do you want to come by and visit?" The answer was yes, and in October 2013, their first romantic date set the stage for a blossoming relationship. By 2014, their shared adventures had expanded beyond London. The pair traveled to Kenya, experiencing the magic of a safari together. Amal loves giraffes. They're her favorite animal, George revealed, reminiscing about their trip. It was a journey that marked the beginning of many, as the two continued to explore the world together, growing closer with every adventure. Not long after their unforgettable first dates and travels, George decided it was time to take the next step. He planned a special proposal, one that captured the depth of his feelings for Amal. Shortly after that, their engagement turned into a whirlwind of excitement and planning. On September 27, 2014, they gathered in Italy to celebrate their love in style, choosing the historic Amman Canal Grande in Venice as their venue. Surrounded by the breathtaking beauty of Venetian canals, the couple said their vows in front of 100 of their closest friends and family members. But this wasn't just another glamorous Hollywood wedding. The couple chose to donate the proceeds from their wedding photos to a human rights charity, setting the tone for a life defined by joint philanthropy. In February 2017, headlines erupted once more. Amal was expecting twins. For George Clooney, the former Eternal Bachelor, this next chapter was a whirlwind he'd never imagined, while Amal, as ever, continued to balance her roles as a legal titan, a global advocate, and now, a soon-to-be mother. Together, they've created a partnership rooted in shared purpose, weaving love and activism into a life story that continues to inspire the world. On June 6, 2017, at a London hospital, Amal Clooney welcomed twins Ella and Alexander into the world, marking a brand new chapter for the couple. George found himself at 56 embracing the joys and challenges of fatherhood. Meanwhile, Amal continued her fierce pursuit of justice, all while adapting to life as a mother. At first glance, Amal Clooney and George Clooney may seem like an unexpected match, but dig a little deeper and you'll discover a powerful alignment in their values. While Amal spends her days taking on the toughest battles for justice, George has long been using his celebrity status to champion humanitarian causes. He's highlighted crises from Darfur to South Sudan and spoken out for refugees, showing a commitment that goes well beyond the movie screen. For Amal, George wasn't just another celebrity. His willingness to step out of Hollywood's bubble and engage in real-world struggles made him a true partner in both life and purpose. Together, they've created a partnership that's more than just romance. It's a union fueled by a shared mission to make a difference. What's the most memorable part of George and Amal's love story that resonates with you? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more.